This episode of the Eclecticide podcast is brought to you again by Ruth 47 Boots. Beautiful handmade boots with just the most astounding leatherwork fitted to you for a very, very reasonable price as far as custom boots goes. Please get at them. Facebook.com/Ruth47Boots. They'll be more than happy to help you out with anything that you need. Also, this episode of the podcast brought to you by our very own www.patreon.com/eclecticide. Again, that's just a way for me to kind of give you all a little promo info. You know, I'm over here, I'm looking at some different koozies, I'm looking at some different stickers, I'm looking at some guitar picks, I'm looking at all sorts of stuff. And the way that you're going to find out about that stuff and the way that you're going to get first access to that stuff is on our Patreon. So again, every little bit helps. These episodes do cost a little bit of money. There's hosting, there's things involved. And that's all there is to it. Again, if you hate it and you don't want to donate any money, then you're okay. But if you like what you're hearing, please go to the link at the bottom of this episode and feel free to donate. All right, guys. So this episode of Eclecticide, episode faux, is a little bit different. It's still party time because it's always party time. However, we're not doing an interview. I don't have anyone sitting here. I don't have anyone on the phone. That's multiple reasons. One, I guess they're catching on and realizing that I'm not that interesting and they want to go somewhere else with their goods. Or, more likely, these things just kind of happen in spurts and we got to have some fillers. So that's what we got. There's not really a whole lot of substance to this episode. Man, these cars driving by are bothering me. Not a whole lot of substance to this episode, but it's just something that I've been thinking about because it's October, so we're getting into Halloween, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's spooky." And I know I'm gonna have people who listen to this. They'll think, "What about All Hallows Eve?" Well, to be honest with you, I'm not pagan. I don't care. Never once have I practiced witchcraft. Not really my thing. The Halloween aspect of it, though, seeing scantily clad ladies eating candies, watching horror movies, and getting to pretend someone I'm not totally into. Along with that, the little creepy stuff I kind of like. And so here lately I've been thinking about cryptids. Cryptids are, little creatures that people like to, for lack of a better word, think that they saw, or maybe they really did. You know, the dictionaries as cryptid is an animal whose existence is unsubstantiated. So I guess like you could say that for a while. A lot of animals were cryptids, I guess you could say. But what we're talking about now are like the garden variety, the ones where like if your neighbor came to you and said, "Hey man, the goddamn chupacabra took my cat," you're gonna be like, "Man, I don't really see that as very likely." The one that got me thinking about this was this whole Houston Batman thing, because I'm from Houston, and if you're not familiar about it, I'm not talking about the superhero that was created in 1939. I mean, I love Batman, and I wish that he lived in Houston. However, he's fictional. What we're talking about was like there's this. And this is the thing that I think is weird. Like, how is this even substantiated in an unsubstantial way? Why would anyone even hold true? I think it was like one night in June in 1953, and it was hot, and this young housewife, like I think Hilda Walker, and a couple of her neighbors, and a 14-year-old, like a kid, are the only ones that saw this. And like this guy, I mean, I guess you could say that they were reasonable. One of them was like a tool operator. He worked at the plant. Like that's what you read in the article, like every time. She was just a housewife, and this 14-year-old kid. My thing is, why the fuck are all these people hanging out? You got this tool plant guy, this housewife who's by herself at, whatever time in the middle of the night, and this 14-year-old. Is the 14-year-old related to this? And my question here is like, is there like something more going on here? What are we covering up? Anyway, cryptids. So they're hanging out in the Heights area of Houston, which is just like, at the time I'm sure it was just like a neighborhood. Now it's like where the rich people like to go and have fancy parties, and they have fancy theaters and all this stuff, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So they're all hanging out at night. I don't have an exact time because I haven't really researched. This isn't like a research thing. This is just something that's been bothering the shit out of me. They're hanging out at night and they see this being that they describe as it's like a man-like, like a person, humanoid, which it looked like they described as a black cloak with like almost like tight-fitting clothing on him. He was, for lack of a better word, radiating light, like a glow. And he had like a leather helmet on. And they're like, yeah, no, he was ginormous and he was glowing. And then he disappeared. And I'm like, well, then why is he the Batman? Because I don't think they even, like, I'm not sure that they even mentioned him flying. I think the assumption was, they're like, you know what? That wasn't a fucking coat. He had wings. Why you would jump to that, I don't understand. The glowing thing is kind of odd. Because they said that light also, like, faded and he just kind of disappeared. You know, like the fucking Shadow. You remember when Alec Baldwin ruined the Shadow? And before, I mean, this is like pre-calling his daughter a fat pig. Still a weird dude, but this is like people ruining comic book movies before people knew what comic book movies were, or that. And it was just such a weird, mad fuckery going on. He had like a crazy dagger that he could command and all that stuff. I digress. Anyway, so recap. 23-year-old housewife, 14-year-old girl, 30-something-year-old plant worker, all hanging out on the front porch. See the figure. Definitely not wearing a leather coat. He has wings. And then his glowing haze disappeared. And it was 1953. Like, his top coat's a pretty standard piece of attire. It's not like he's like, oh, he was wearing a fucking catcher's mitt and, assless chaps. Which oddly enough now might actually be acceptable in the Heights. Some parts of Houston, most definitely. But I was reading a possible explanations, which they say there are several as to what this creature could be. The theories include an undiscovered species, which is where we get into cryptids. The other one, is extraterrestrial. Okay. The last is a hoax, and it's described as it could have possibly been. And I quote, a man in a suit. Which one's more fucking likely, dude? That it was a humanoid alien, 1953, wearing a leather helmet, tight-fitting clothes, and a black cloak, or a cryptid that no one has seen since then, or quite possibly just a weird dude in the 1950s that wanted to do something weird. For all you know, he was going to come do something weird to the 14-year-old, but then there's a 23-year-old woman and a 30-year-old man. You don't know. Or better yet, dude, that guy's supposed to be hanging out with the 33-year-old man. He don't want nobody to know. And he's like, holy shit, Mike's here? Go away. Now, why is he glowing? I don't know. I don't know. Like, apparently, since then, people in the area at, like, some local theaters and local businesses have had claimed to have seen a giant helmeted man crouched down and attempting to hide on the roof of a downtown city building late in the 1990s, right? So this is like 40 years later. But the whole thing there is that, I mean, again, like, Batman was created in 1939, okay? More than likely, this guy is just a guy. I mean, or he's an extraterrestrial, or it's a cryptid. But as far as the 1990s thing goes, that's probably someone like me who just stumbled across some bullshit article and was like, it'd be funny, dude. Let's go further this thing, And it just makes me think more about, like, how many of these people are just, like, making crap up, and what's our obsession with it? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I used to think Bigfoot was real, and sometimes I still like play with the fact that I'm like, no, dude, 100% Bigfoot's real. There's a whole lot of wilderness out there. How many times you see a fucking rabbit in the woods? But I guarantee you they're out there. I see them a little bit more frequently, but I'm just getting at, they're out there. I always joke that you don't find, like, Sasquatch bodies or anything because they have a very increased societal structure, a societal structure, and they bury their dead. It's just something that I do just to annoy people that don't like Squatch and stuff like that. But what's the obsession, though? Like, does it really matter if they're there? Or is it just the matter that people want to see things that people have never seen and do things that people have never done? That's the annoying part. So with that being said, couldn't these people who say, at least in this regard, the people who are full of shit and who are lying and know that they're lying, wouldn't it just be easier for them to just create their own hoax and actually just go out and dress up like a Batman? Or as they have in Virginia, would be the closest thing that I've seen to this, which would be the Mothman, right? There's like a statue of the Mothman. It's so weird, but it's also odd to me that it gets so much attention now. Like, it's okay. Like, we realize that it's not very practical. It's probably not a real thing, especially since the last sighting was in the 90s. Before that was 40 years earlier. He's been, like, living in a cave somewhere. But we're so advanced with stuff and technology. Is that why we think it's dumb? Like, 200, 300 years ago, would we be like, oh no, definitely, Grandpa once saw it, it's real? Like, is this what happened with Bigfoot? Anyone that's listened to Joe Rogan for 45 minutes hears the fucking Gigantopithecus, and that's, God, drives me nuts. But he's like, no, Bigfoot was real. It's like, yeah, but I mean, did people ever see the giant monkey? Like, or all these things just like a modern adaptation of old, like, folklore that just kind of bled into modern times, and someone's like, I saw the thing. I'm not doubting that people see shit. I've seen some weird stuff. One time, I'm pretty sure, like, here's the fun fact. I can say with certain that, to me, I saw a UFO, because that flying object at this juncture and then was unidentified. I know that, but I didn't go to the newspaper with it, because if it was something that was weird, 45 to 250 other people would have seen it because I was on the damn Beltway. Someone in there obviously knew what that was, and so to them it's not unidentified, but to me it is. So, like, why aren't we calling, like, Sasquatch, like, I don't know, like, UBAMI forest, like, unidentified big-ass monkey in forest, as opposed to this? Like, just call it what it is. It's an unidentified thing. It's whatever. But the weird thing is, like, no one's ever seeing things from different cultures. Like, no one's ever just come up and been like, hey, we saw Hostlerman, which is like some weird Czech frogman that drowns children if they get too close to the water. No one's seeing that shit, but it's just as believable as a 6.5 foot tall Batman. It's just a weird thing, man. People are just weird, and I think if someone who didn't live in a trailer would talk about it, that maybe, just maybe, it would hold more merit to me. You know what I mean? These names are funny as shit. Bat Squatch, Airborn Frogman. Airborn Frogman sounds like the worst 1990s band ever. Like, hey, you guys want to go see Candlebox and Airborn Frogman? People are like, man, I really can't stand Airborn Frogman. But in the 90s, it's a weird time because no one had, like, Spotify or YouTube, so you couldn't find out if the band Blue Dogs for quarters or not before you got there. You'd just be pissed that you spent $15 for a second. I don't know how much concert tickets were in the 90s. I was like 10 in 99, so... Sorry, I digress. It's really hard to do these things by yourself, especially when you just, like, have, like, random topics running through your head. Guys, I'm sorry, but, we got to get some other people in here to interview. If y'all hate this, man, it's going to be a long month. But fucking cryptids, dude. Like, I would love to sit down with a cryptozoologist. Like, one, I want them to explain that to me. Like, how do you tell me that your degree's not made up when that of which you study is by definition made up? It's like a fake degree. Like, people have degrees in this. There's, like, my misunderstood is like a certificate. You get it like night class. If you're a cryptozoologist or you know a cryptozoologist, please have them contact me. Eclecticidepod at gmail.com. Facebook. I'll sit down and talk to them. I'll be respectful. It's nice. I'd like to know. Or shit, if you know someone who just happens to be the end all be all uber master of the Houston Batman or the Virginia Mothman or any variation thereof, have them contact me. I quite frankly think that it's an oversight, and I think that I was just a weird dude creeping up on some people and realized that they could see him and it was time to go. You know, crimes of opportunity oftentimes get thwarted by odd party hours, I would imagine. Man, just not a lot of substance to this. But you just got to take a bite out of that, man. I mean, this is going to be a shorty. I'm going to have a couple of these this month, you know, just stuff to keep y'all moving right along and to just not get dull. A buddy of mine, new podcast called The Selection. If you want to hear people talk about random shit that's not me and stuff that's a little bit more organized, The Selection. It's about military history. It's about his experience in the military. He's a young dude, really, really nice guy, recently married, hanging out, having a good time. And he's just kind of using this podcast as a way to kind of like work his head around everything that he's going through. Basic training, AIT, finding out he's getting deployed, all these things. The Selection. It's just out now, so you can find it on Simplecast. I'll put a link to it on mine. I'll put a link to it on my Facebook. But it will be the same way mine is. It'll be on Google, Spotify, so on and so forth. I'm sorry to cut this one short. I'm running out of batteries. Guys, if you have information about cryptids, or if you want to sit in this chair across from me and try to convince me of some of this crap, please let me know and we'll set something up. I don't even know. I can do phone interviews. I can do any of this crap. But there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, if there's anything that you do want to hear about that you're like, hey, what do you think about this? Please message me that as well. We have tons of stuff that I have coming up. I just didn't want to be away from you guys for so long. You know, I'm afraid that y'all start cheating on me, and then I have to keep the kid. You have to pay child support, and it's a rough one, you know, and I love you guys. So please check out our sponsors, Ruth47 Boots, www.patreon.com/eclecticide as well. Give me a little kickback, give me a little lovin's, and I'll return the favor, man. These stickers, these koozies, and all this stuff's going to be fantastic. The weekly newsletter is going to be great. We did it all in one take. It sounded awesome. Sorry for the shorter episode today. Feel free to hit me up. Please share, like, comment, subscribe, download all the old episodes, all 3 of them, you guys. We're getting so famous in France right now. It's insane. It's like 35 people in France this week. So, bonjour. That's it, guys. Don't forget, don't be a fool. Shit yeah, dude, man. And always, fucking party time.
This has been a Rhyme or Reason production.